What if I told you that in all of Star Wars lore, there is only a single Kaminoan Jedi? One Jedi that lived for nearly 3,000 years and was the only Force sensitive of her entire species, with this making her a massive threat to the Kaminoan people, as she ultimately chose exile over joining with them. Well, today, we will explain the story of the only Kaminoan Jedi that we know of in Star Wars lore, why she was so unique and powerful, how she lived so long, and why she ultimately resolved to leave her people. The Jedi Master that we will be focusing on today is known as Kin Ha. Your prowess with a lightsaber is childish vanity. Your physical force powers are no more than a conjurer's trick, sleight of hand to dazzle the ordinary beings you should be serving. You profane these powers by using them as weapons in war, and you fail to grasp the single, simple, uncompromising duty of a true Jedi. The Jedi is the rock lion at the gate who says, "I will defend these beings with my life, and that is the sum of me." Kin Ha was a female Kaminoan Jedi Master trained during the era of peace known only as the Republic Classic era. Born on Kamino, Kin Ha was a Kaminoan who had been genetically altered to survive long hyperspace journeys. These deep space missions were never carried out, and Ha was left without purpose among her highly organized homeworld and people, making her somewhat of an outcast. Matters grew worse as she entered her adulthood. Her force sensitivity began to manifest itself, drawing the criticism and disdain of her perfectionist peers, with her peers whispering behind her back that she had no place among them, perceived by them as an outcast, as she not only was force sensitive, but also did not act like a typical Kaminoan. She had a sense of morals beyond her people, and was not always focused on being perfect. Not to mention she also had a sense of humor, something that was incredibly rare for the Kaminoan people, as they believed that because she had been genetically altered to survive so long in hyperspace, that there was something wrong with her and Kin Ha had essentially gone rotten. Because of this, Kin Ha eventually departed her homeworld for fear of being re-educated, losing all of her memories, or potentially even killed by her own people. During her journeys, Ha came under the tutelage of the rogue Jedi known as Krashaduk, who trained her as a Jedi Guardian. Over many years of training unofficially by the Jedi, Kin Ha was deemed a Jedi Knight. What made her exceptionally rare is of course she was much older than is commonplace to be trained by a Jedi, but because she came across a rogue Jedi Master and he sensed her latent force potential, he resolved to train her anyway. With the Kaminoan people rejecting her, her Jedi Master believed that she was a clean slate and could still be trained as a successful Jedi, with her Jedi Master not wanting the force potential manifesting in a Kaminoan to go to waste, believing this to be a sign of the force that she was worthy of training. Eventually, Kin Ha was officially inducted into the Jedi Order as a Jedi Master, with many on the council at the time believing that she was a valiant and faithful Jedi, not being as weary as they would be during the Clone Wars era. For nearly 3,000 years, Kin Ha served faithfully as a Jedi Master of the Order. This is perplexing as she was far older than even the current Grandmaster and Jedi Grandmaster Yoda. However, Kin Ha never wanted to take a place on the Jedi Council, believing that she wanted to protect the innocence of the galaxy in a more active role, and began to perceive many of the flaws in the Jedi Order as the Clone Wars era began. She saw that the Jedi were becoming far more dogmatic, and considered herself lucky to be trained in an era where this was not the case. Again, Kin Ha was trained generations before even Grandmaster Yoda was born, and therefore essentially represented the last of the ancient Jedi. This was also reflected in her lightsaber, which was made nearly entirely of the gold alloy known as Electrum. Her armor was also indicative of the ancient Jedi, as she still actually, wore armor. Kin Ha was even around to see Revan in the Mandalorian Wars, growing a strong bond with the Mandalorians in the process. It was even recorded that following the Mandalorian Wars, Kin Ha traveled the galaxy as a roamer and a nomad, helping any of those that required her aid, and saving many worlds without the greater knowledge of the Jedi Order or the Jedi Council, nor their permission. After nearly 100 years, Kin Ha settled on the planet known as Verusku. It was here where she was plagued with a terrifying vision from the dark side itself, as she saw soldiers from her homeworld of Kamino infected and embracing the dark side, purging the galaxy of all Jedi. What Kin Ha was granted with was a vision of the clone troopers and the Clone Wars. In a very rare occurrence, Kin Ha ventured back to the Jedi Temple in an effort to warn the Council, However, it was far too late. When the Clone Wars eventually broke out, Kin-Ha refused to have any part in them, believing that her vision had to take place for the galaxy to continue, and that her pleas for the Jedi not to adopt the clones would only fall on deaf ears. Learning that perhaps the Jedi Order needed to be rebuilt. However, when they did fall, Kin-Ha would arrive to help the stragglers and the survivors of the Great Purge that she knew would soon come. Eventually, when Order 66 was enacted and the Jedi were gunned down by the clone troopers that Kin-Ha had feared so vehemently, she leaped into action, attempting to save as many young Jedi Padawans as possible. And after rescuing a group from the clone troopers, as she herself obviously was not a part of the Clone War and was not around them, she ventured to an old Mandalorian friend who promised that they would smuggle the young Jedi Padawans as well as Kin-Ha to safety. Their Mandalorian protector promised them that they would find a secret Jedi refuge where more Jedi were hiding out, with Kin-Ha hoping that the Great Jedi Purge would not last too long and that she would have the power necessary to protect the young Padawans. Unfortunately for us, the tale of Kin-Ha ends here, and we have no idea what happened to the famed 3,000-year-old Jedi Master. In my mind, however, there are two options for Kin-Ha's outcome. Perhaps she took the Jedi Padawans into safety during the Purge, hiding where the Clone Wars had not managed to find her, and again, escaped from the reign of the Great Galactic Empire, the wrath of Lord Vader and Lord Sidious. Perhaps because she was 3,000 years old, she was able to hide away the Jedi younglings to a place where the Empire never discovered them, where they could live out their days in peace. And the second, far more grim option is that either the clones, Darth Vader, or the Inquisitors located Kin-Ha and executed her on the spot. I would like to think of the latter, however. The idea that potentially Kin-Ha trained a new generation of Force wielders, training them in the old days of the Jedi Order as protectors, and as she stated, the stone lions at the gate, venturing the galaxy as nomads and as a sort of pure knight, with no allegiance to the Republic or a wider order. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this tale? The tale of Jedi Master Kin-Ha, the only Kaminoan Jedi, and how she ultimately lived for 3,000 years. Had you heard of Master Kin-Ha before this video? And now that you have, what are your thoughts on her? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching and continuing to support the channel. May the Force be with you, and I hope that you have a great day.